I never thought I'd be here writing my story on Reddit. If you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have said my life was perfect or as close to perfect as anyone could ask for. I had a beautiful wife, a solid job, and a home filled with everything I thought a family should have. Looking back now, it feels like I was living in a dream that slowly morphed into a nightmare that broke me completely. But it's also the story of how I found love again in the most unexpected way. Let me take you back to where it all began. My wife, Jessica, and I met in college. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room just by walking into it. Everyone loved her, and for some reason, she chose me. I was never the popular guy, just a quiet guy who focused on his studies, but when she came into my life, everything seemed brighter. We got together quickly, fell hard for each other, and soon became inseparable. I truly believed she was my soulmate. We got married 5 years later, and life seemed to follow the script of a happily ever after story. I had landed a good job in it. Jessica was thriving as a graphic designer, and we moved into a cozy suburban house. Our friends often commented on how we were the perfect couple. Little did they know the foundation of that perfection would soon crack wide open. Things started to change about 2 years into our marriage. Jessica had always been independent and social, but suddenly she was staying out late more often, going to work events and girls' nights out more frequently. At first, I didn't think much of it. I trusted her, she was my wife after all, but gradually the signs became harder to ignore. She was glued to her phone, texting late at night and smiling at her screen in ways that I hadn't seen her smile at me in a long time. I started feeling a pit in my stomach, but I didn't want to believe something was wrong. I'd brush it off, telling myself I was just paranoid or insecure. But the paranoia only grew. There was a time when we would spend our weekends together watching movies, going for hikes, or just enjoying each other's company. Now, her weekends were packed with plans that didn't include me. We stopped talking about our days, and she was emotionally distant, as if she was in the room physically, but miles away mentally. One night, after she'd fallen asleep, I did something I never thought I would. I checked her phone. I know it's a huge breach of trust, but at that point, I felt like I had no other choice. My gut was screaming at me, and I had to know if there was something I was missing. What I found shattered me completely. There were dozens of messages between Jessica and a guy named Mark. At first, it seemed innocent enough banter, jokes, talking about work. But then the messages took a turn. They were talking about meeting up, reminiscing about that night and how they couldn't wait to see each other again. The flirty emojis, the way she called him babe, it all felt like a dagger to my chest. I scrolled further, and there it was, the confirmation of my worst fear. She had been cheating on me for months. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed, feeling like the floor had just fallen out from under me. My hands were shaking, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me? I loved her more than anything, and I thought she loved me too. When I confronted her the next day, she didn't deny it. In fact, she barely reacted. She just stared at me, emotionless, like she'd already made her peace with the situation. She said something about how she hadn't been happy for a long time, how Mark made her feel alive. In a way I hadn't in years. It felt like a slap in the face. All those years, all those moments we'd shared, reduced to nothing. I moved out that night. I couldn't be in that house, surrounded by the ghost of our marriage. The divorce process was brutal, not because of legal complications, but because of the emotional toll it took on me. I'd never felt so broken, so hollowed out. My friends tried to be there for me, but I shut myself off from everyone. I didn't know how to deal with the pain, so I just existed. Day by day, I went through the motions, but inside I felt dead. For about a year, I was in a dark place. I stopped caring about my appearance, barely ate, and spent most of my time either working or isolating myself at home. The only time I felt anything was when I thought about Jessica and what she did to me. The betrayal ran so deep that I didn't think I'd ever recover. I was convinced that love was a lie, that trusting someone only led to getting hurt. But then something unexpected happened. I reconnected with an old friend from high school, Rachel. She'd heard about my divorce through mutual friends and reached out to check on me. At first, I was hesitant. I didn't want to talk about what happened or let anyone into the mess that was my life. But Rachel was persistent in a gentle way. She didn't push me to open up, but she also didn't let me wallow in self-pity. We started hanging out, casually grabbing coffee, going for walks, just talking about life. With her, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: normal. There were no expectations, no pressure to be anything other than myself. Slowly, I started to realize that not everyone would hurt me like Jessica did. Not everyone was out to break my heart. Rachel had been through her own set of struggles, bad relationships, toxic work environments, but through it all, she remained kind and hopeful. She had this ability to see the good in people, even when life had given her plenty of reasons not to. Over time, I found myself opening up to her about everything about Jessica, the affair, the pain, and how I'd been drowning in it ever since. One day, after months of building what I thought was just a friendship, Rachel looked at me and said, "You deserve to be happy again. I don't know why." But those words hit me hard. Maybe it was because I hadn't allowed myself to believe that. I thought I was too broken to ever feel happiness or love again. But Rachel made me believe that I wasn't beyond saving. We started spending more time together, and slowly but surely I began to heal. I started working out again, focusing on my mental health, and rediscovering the things that made me happy before everything fell apart. And as I healed, my feelings for Rachel grew. It wasn't some whirlwind romance, it was something steady, something real. She became the light in the darkness that had consumed me for so long. We've been together for a year now, and for the first time in a long time, I feel at peace. Jessica's betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it doesn't define me anymore. I've learned that sometimes life has to break you before you can rebuild into something stronger. Rachel showed me that love isn't about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It's about showing up, being there for someone when they need it the most, and choosing to love them even when things aren't perfect. She helped me believe in love again, and for that I'll always be grateful. So if you're reading this and going through something similar, I want you to know that it's okay to feel broken. It's okay to hurt, and it's okay to take your time healing. But don't give up on love. Don't let the actions of one person convince you that you're unworthy of happiness. Sometimes love finds you when you least expect it.